Hello dear students, welcome to today's classes. Last class we have already discussed about congenital heart defects, the classification and what are the conditions which is coming under congenital heart diseases. So now we can discuss in detail about each condition. So in the last day's discussion we already discussed that different hemodynamic changes are leading to this congenital heart defects and its problems. So the first hemodynamic change which is happening in congenital heart diseases and especially in acyanotic heart diseases are defects with increased pulmonary blood flow. So what is actually happening and what are the changes which is occurring when there is increased pulmonary blood flow, that we can discuss first and we can proceed into the disease condition. So generally in increased pulmonary blood flow, the conditions which comes under this particular heading include atrioseptal defect, ventricular septal defect, patent ductus arteriosus, etc. So in these all conditions, there will be an intracardiac communication along the septum or an abnormal connection between the great arteries. So there is abnormal communication along the septum, that can be atrial septal defect or ventricular septal defect, or an abnormal connection between the great arteries, example patent ductus arteriosus. Here there is an abnormal connection between the aorta and the pulmonary artery. These are the great arteries. So between these two arteries there is an abnormal communication happening. So based on the pressure change, so we already discussed in the fetal circulation before birth, that is during the fetal circulation, the pressure, the volume is high in the right side comparing to the left side, and after birth, the baby gets the increased high pressure or higher pressure in the left side of the heart comparing to the right side. So because of this pressure change after birth, if there is an abnormal communication between the two chambers or between great arteries, it allows the blood to flow from the higher pressure left side of the heart to the lower pressure right side of the heart. So in atrial septal defect, the right atrium has lesser pressure than the left atrium. So from left atrium, blood will be coming back to the right atrium abnormally. In ventricular septal defect also, the pressure in the left ventricle will be more than the right ventricle. So through this septal defect, from left ventricle to right ventricle, blood flows. And in PDA also, like aorta has more pressure than the pulmonary artery. So from aorta, blood flows back to the pulmonary artery. So this is the second point in this particular defects with increased blood flow. Because of this abnormal communication, blood flow from higher pressure left side of the heart to the lower pressure right side of the heart. So pulmonary artery also stands with the right side and aorta stands for the left side. Okay, hope you all clear with the point. So as a result of that, increased blood volume in the right side of the heart, so increases the blood volume in the right side. Pulmonary blood flow increases at the expense of systemic blood flow. So the work effort is increasing because already purified blood which is received into the left side is coming back to the right side, and it is again pumped into the pulmonary region, and there will be increased blood volume in the right side and pulmonary artery. So this will cause workload for the right side, and the clinical features of the congestive heart failure will be presented by the patient. Clinically, the patient demonstrates the signs and symptoms of congestive heart failure because the right side part or right side of the heart is working harder to pump more amount of blood which is already coming back from the left side. Okay, so already the pulmonary artery is getting more amount of blood, and along with that additional amount is coming from the left side. So it will cause additional workload on the right side of the heart, and which will be resulting in the signs and symptoms of congestive cardiac failure or congestive heart failure, CHF. So hope you all are clear with what is the change which is happening in a defect with increased pulmonary blood flow. So this is the same communication and this is the same pressure overload, and the manifestations of CHF can be seen in atrial septal defect, ventricular septal defect and patent ductus arteriosus. So these are the changes which is happening in defects with increased pulmonary blood flow. Hope you all clear. Now we can proceed into the atrial septal defect. So in your syllabus, one condition which is coming in the congenital heart diseases, and it is now we know that atrial septal defect, it is coming under defects with increased pulmonary blood flow. So we know that there is a septal defect and there is a normal communication which is overloading the work of right side. So this is all together or all as a whole we can say regarding atrial septal defect. So we can see in detail. So atrial septal defect, it is an opening in the atrial septum. Okay, this is an opening in the atrial septum. It is very clear, and it allows the oxygenated blood to pass from the left atrium through the opening in the septum and then mix with deoxygenated blood in the right atrium. So this atrial septum or the opening in the atrial septum will allows the oxygenated blood to pass from the left atrium through the opening in the septum and then mix with deoxygenated blood in the right atrium. So the blood which is received in the left atrium from the pulmonary veins, 4 pulmonary veins, will be shunted to the atrial through the atrial septum to the right side or right atrium, because and during this right atrium the blood which is already present is the deoxygenated blood which is coming from superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava. So this oxygenated blood is coming back to the deoxygenated blood. Okay, that is the exactly problem with atrial septal defect. So it occurs in 4 to 10% of all infants with congenital heart defects. Okay, among this all congenital heart defects, it's up to 4 to 10%. And the effect of this is large volume of blood than normal in the right side of the heart. So already in the previous slide we have already discussed what is happening is than normal more amount of blood will be coming to the right side, right atrium from left atrium. So extra blood then passes through the pulmonary artery into the lungs. So this extra blood from right atrium, it will be coming to the right ventricle, and from right ventricle it will be pumped into the pulmonary artery. So this extra blood is going to the lung area through pulmonary artery. So as a result of that, there will be pulmonary hypertension and respiratory distress. So this extra blood is going to the pulmonary region, which is leading to pulmonary hypertension and respiratory distress. The manifestations of respiratory distress will be presented by the child if it is not treated for a longer period. So this is about the atrial septal defect. Hope you all are clear. So this is a picture of atrial septal defect. You can see the septal defect in the atrial septum. Okay, so the right side is overloaded with pure blood which is coming from the left atrium into the right atrium. So this effect will be causing amount of blood more in the right atrium, and again it will be causing burden on the right ventricle. It will again cause burden on the pulmonary artery, and it will cause pulmonary hypertension and the respiratory distress. So this is about the atrial septal defect. So next we can see the classification of atrial septal defect. So one more thing which I wanted to add in this particular session is, we already know that in fetal circulation there was an abnormal or there was a foramen, that is foramen ovale, which was present in the atrial septum, which allows the normal flow during the fetal circulation. That is, from right atrium to left atrium, the blood was shunted through foramen ovale. So normally in atrial septal defect, foramen ovale is not having any significant role. Okay, here in atrial septal defect, if it is an anatomical structural defect, then it is the atrial defect. That means patent foramen ovale is not considered as atrial septal defect. During the heart formation, if there is any structural defect is occurring during the each trimester, or especially in the first trimester, that is formed as a atrial septal defect. Okay, if the foramen ovale is not closed, it is not considered as atrial septal defect. So there are three types of atrial septal defect. They are ostium primum, ostium secundum, and sinus venosus defect. So in this atrial septal defect, there are three type of atrial septal defect. So first one is ostium primum. So ostium primum means if the opening, if the defect is in the lower part of the atrial septum, okay, just near to the semilunar and bicuspid and tricuspid valves, then it is known as the ostium primum. That is in the atrial septum. If it is in the lower part of the atrial septum, it is ostium primum. Ostium secundum can be slightly bigger, and it is usually present in the mid level of atrial septum. Defect in the mid portion of the, or in the middle portion of the atrial septum, then it is known as ostium secundum. And the sinus venosus defect, because we know that the superior vena cava is opening to the right atrium. So in a near portion of that particular opening of superior vena cava opening, if it is present, then it is known as sinus venosus defect. That means in the top of the atrial septum, okay, where the superior vena cava is opening, near to that, if the defect is present, then it is known as the sinus venosus defect. So this classification of atrial septal defect is purely based on the position of atrial septal defect. If it is in the lower portion of the atrial septum, it is ostium primum. If it is in the middle portion, then it is known as the ostium secundum, and it is in the top of the atrial septum and just near to the opening of superior vena cava, then it is known as the sinus venosus defect. Okay, hope you are clear with this classification. So already the pathophysiological changes we already discussed. If atrial septal defect is left uncorrected, the pulmonary hypertension progresses. So we already discussed that atrial septal defect here, the problem is because of the volume overload on the right side of the heart, because of the abnormal flow of blood from left side to the right side. So if it is uncorrected, pulmonary hypertension progresses and pressure in the right side of the heart will become greater than the left side of the heart. Okay, if it is not treated properly, if it is not corrected properly, it can, the pressure after flowing from left to right, so slowly, this pressure gradient which was higher in the left side reverses, so that the right side pressure increases because the blood is more amount is coming to the right side. So this leads to the higher pressure in the right side of the heart than the left side of the heart. This reversal of the pressure gradient across the atrial septal defect causes the shunt to reverse. So till now the shunting was from left to right, that is left side of the heart to right side of the heart. So when this pressure changes continuously, when the pressure is increasing, volume is increasing, the pressure over the right side is increasing, and this reversal can happen. So that is known as Eisenmenger syndrome. That means right to left shunt exists. So here the problem from right to left shunt is the impure blood is coming to the left side and it will be circulated. Okay, hope you all understood. That means till now the pure blood was coming to the right side, but if it is reversing, right side impure blood is going to the left side. So what happens is aorta will take this impure blood and it will be circulated. So the signs and symptoms of cyanosis can happen if the child's ASD is not corrected properly in time. So this is the main problem of this atrial septal defect. So Eisenmenger's syndrome. Okay, thank you. So hope you all clear with this. And once the right to left shunt occurs, a portion of the oxygen poor blood will get shunted to the left side of the heart and ejected to the peripheral vascular system. So this will cause the cyanosis. So that is a problem of Eisenmenger's syndrome. Okay. So right to left shunt occurs, poor oxygenated blood will be coming to the left side. So aorta will take this blood and it will be circulated. So the child will be showing the signs and symptoms of cyanosis. So next we can see the manifestations of atrial septal defect. So initially in the last class itself we know that even though the congenital heart defect is present at birth, it may not be presentable, so that the diagnosis will be delayed in many of the conditions because usually asymptomatic. The child may be asymptomatic because in the initial period a child may not require that much energy and metabolic and oxygen demands will be low because the child is not starting its ambulation. So when the child is starting locomotion and other activities, the signs and symptoms will be presented by the child. So that's why we can say that initially the child will be asymptomatic, especially when the hole or when the defect is small also the child will be asymptomatic and may develop congestive cardiac failure. Recurrent chest infections will be there, murmur can be there, this abdominal flow can be heard with auscultation, that is murmur. Then dyspnea on accession, easy fatigability, bulging of the chest, poor weight gain, child tires easily when playing, infant tires easily when feeding, fatigue, sweating, tachypnea, tachycardia, shortness of breath, crackles, poor growth, cardiac enlargement and chest pain. So these are some of the manifestations. So first of all you have to understand this. The child will be asymptomatic in majority of the cases because the congestive cardiac failure development or the complications when the child is developing, it may take more time. Before that, we may hear some murmur or other manifestations we have to monitor, and we have to observe the child very keen. Then only we can understand the manifestations. It is very difficult to diagnose, and the complications also arise according to the severity of the condition, severity of the defect. Okay. Diagnostic evaluation history can be collected like maternal history, obstetric and gynecological history, any exposure with X-ray, any viral infections or any illnesses during pregnancy, these all things, and also genetic and other family history also can be collected properly. Physical examination can be done like head to foot examination. Based on the manifestations, we can have a clear picture about the suspicion of this atrial septal defect. Lab investigations can be done, radiodiagnostic measures like chest X-ray, ECG, echocardiography, cardiac catheterization and exercise test. So chest X-ray, we can see the enlargement of the right side of the heart, especially the cardiomegaly can be seen, and this cardiac catheterization can be done to find out the presence of oxygenated blood in the right side and to identify the pressure changes between the vena cava pressure and the right side pressure. Right side or right atrium, right ventricle pressure changes can be identified. So these are some of the diagnostic evaluations. And regarding the management, medical management, exercise restriction is unnecessary. We can give some exercises, and digoxin is given, digoxin diuretics are given. These two drugs are given to prevent the complications or to manage the complications of congestive cardiac failure. So digoxin is administered to strengthen the heart muscle and effective pumping, because in majority of the condition congestive cardiac failure occurs when the heart, right side of the heart is working more. It may cause relaxation of the muscles, so that will be prevented by digoxin. And diuretics will be administered to relieve the pulmonary congestion, because of the pooling of extra blood in the lung field, the child may have the pulmonary congestion and the respiratory distress. So this is why we are giving diuretics, okay, as a medical management. And we know that this is a pure anatomic defect. Okay, so medical management is not supporting or not curing the defect which is already present in the inside the heart. So closure is the option for this atrial septal defect, so that we have to give non-surgical closure or the surgical closure can be done. So non-surgical closure is done by catheter insertion. Okay, catheter delivered closure devices has become a preferred method, because in small children open heart surgery and doing this much complicated surgeries are not easy. Comparing to that, less complications and less pain, and post-op care also will be easy when you are doing a non-surgical closure. So devices available for clinical use have included the Cedris buttoned device, the angel wings device, the CardioSeal device, and the Amblaster ASD occlusion device. So these all devices are used for closure, non-surgical closure of the atrial septal defect. Amblaster septal occluder has the widespread use. Okay, this is widely used for atrial septal defect closure. Then use of the closure device may be indicated in to close atrial septal defect measuring 5 mm or more in diameter, but less than 32 mm. So usually non-surgical closure will be done in atrial septal defect with 5 mm diameter up to 32 mm. Okay, that is the diameter which is preferred for this atrial septal defect closure with this non-surgical method. Okay, a significant left to right shunt with the clinical evidence of right ventricular volume overload. So if there is right side volume overload with significant flow of blood from left to right, we will be indicating. Again, the other indication is there must be enough rim, that is 4 mm of septal tissue around the defect for appropriate placement of the device. So surrounding septal tissue amount should be more than 4 mm. So a rim should be there. So in that we have to fix this device. The timing of the device or device closure, because of the possibility of the spontaneous closure, it is not used in infancy unless the patient is symptomatic with heart failure. Because in majority of the conditions, patent ductus arteriosus, ventricular septal defect or atrial septal defect, usually it can happen a spontaneous closure. A spontaneous closure can happen in majority of the conditions. So usually we are not doing this particular procedure in infancy up to 1 year. We will wait for a spontaneous closure, and if it is not closing, we will be proceeding with this non-surgical device closure. So and also one more thing we have to think, if the flow is that much high and if there is heart failure within the infancy period, then we will take the child for the procedure. So these are the indications. So measurement of the AST should be 5 mm to 32 mm. There should be a left to right shunting, and there should be a rim, surrounding tissue should be there, and the timing of the device usually we will be doing after 1 year, because we will be waiting the child to spontaneously close if the defect is very small. Okay, normally some conditions it will be closing within one year or within 6 to 1 year. So this is the picture of ASD device closure. So we will be inserting the catheter with the device, and we will be opening on the to the left side, and we will be attaching this device there, and we will be removing the catheter. So this is the SD device. Okay, so this is the rim. So you can, in the second picture in the right side, you can see the surrounding rim with which we will be inserting and we will be fixing. Okay, ഒരു രണ്ട് ഗ്യാപ്പ് കാണുന്നുണ്ടായിരിക്കും, ഈ ഒന്നാമത്തതും രണ്ടാമത്തതും തമ്മിലുള്ള ഗ്യാപ്പ്. ആ ഗ്യാപ്പാണ് നമ്മൾ ഇവിടെ എട്രിയൽ സെപ്റ്റൽ ഡിഫക്റ്റിൻ്റെ ഇടയിൽ ഒരു ഫിക്സ് ആവാൻ വേണ്ടിയിട്ട് യൂസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. സോ ദിസ് ഇസ് ദ ASD ഡിവൈസ് ക്ലോഷർ. ഓക്കെ, so advantages of non-surgical closure: complete avoidance of cardiopulmonary bypass can be done. So if it is opening, the heart surgery is done by an opening method. Cardiopulmonary bypass is needed, but in catheter closure or device closure, there is no need of any bypassing. Avoidance of pain and residual thoracotomy scars, less than 24 hours hospital stay, rapid recovery, and all these devices are associated with a higher rate of small residual leak than in operative closure. So the leak will be very small, recovery will be faster, and hospital stay also will be less. And very importantly, open heart surgery, we have to do the procedure by bypassing. Okay, so it can be avoided in a non-surgical closure. So after device closure, the patients are administered aspirin 81 mg per day for 6 months, and post procedure echo studies are required to identify any leakage between this left and right through this corrected area. So any leak we have to identify, so echo studies will be done repeatedly. Surgical management: it is indicated a left to right shunt with a pulmonary to systemic blood flow ratio of 1.5:1. If the shunt is more than 1.5:1, then we will be indicating a surgical management. Okay, the timing usually delayed until 2 to 4 years of age because of the possibility of spontaneous closure, and surgery is performed in infancy if congestive heart failure or congestive heart failure does not respond to medical management. So usually we will be delaying the surgery for 2 to 4 years, and if it is there with congestive heart failure which is not manageable with medical management like digoxin and diuretics, we will go with this surgical management in infancy also. Infants with associated bronchopulmonary dysplasia and the device closure is not considered appropriate, surgery is performed during infancy. So if any other associated defects like bronchopulmonary dysplasia and device closure, if it's not possible for the baby, we will be opting for surgical management. High pulmonary vascular resistance may be a contraindication for surgery. If the hypertension is that much severe, we may not take the child for a surgical management. Okay, the procedure: the defect is traditionally repaired with a simple suture or pericardial or Teflon patch through a mid-sternal incision under cardiopulmonary bypass by either, and the procedure is called Dacron patch closure. So a simple suture is kept, or pericardial or Teflon patch will be kept in the mid-sternal through a mid-sternal incision. So that is after cardiopulmonary bypass is done. So this is the open surgery. Usually we will be doing Dacron patch closure. So this is the Dacron patch we will be keeping, and we will be suturing in the particular area where the defect is present. So suturing of the Dacron patch. Okay, that is a Dacron patch closure. So after ASD, what is normally happening is spontaneous closure of the ASD occurs in about 40% of the patients in first 4 years of life. So we can wait for a spontaneous closure. In majority of cases, spontaneous closure can occur. Most children with an ASD remain active and asymptomatic. Usually, majority of the children are asymptomatic, and majority of complications may not be present in large number of children. Complications are less. Okay, rarely congestive heart failure can develop in infancy, so that demands the immediate management. Okay, if the congestive heart failure is developing in the child, it requires the immediate management and the closure. Otherwise, we can wait for a spontaneous closure for a longer period. If large defect is untreated, congestive heart failure and pulmonary hypertension may develop in adults who are in their 20s and 30s. So if we are waiting and not treating till 20 to 30, there may be chances of complications like congestive heart failure and pulmonary hypertension. So we have to follow up and we have to correct it properly. With or without surgery, atrial arrhythmias may occur in adults. So if we are not managing or managing also, the complication as a stretching of this right side of the heart can cause the atrial fibrillations, like atrial arrhythmias, flutter or fibrillation can occur in adults because it is causing the stretching of the conductive system of the heart. Okay. First follow-up after the surgery, cardiomegaly on X-ray film and enlarged right ventricular dimension on echo as well as the wide splitting of S2 may persist for 1 to 2 years post-operatively. So we have to monitor the child. Some changes are expected post-operatively. Atrial or nodal arrhythmias occurs in 7 to 20% of post-operative patients. Okay, atrial or arrhythmias are also present because right side is affected with the, or right side is closely related to the conduction system of the heart. So when there is any stretching of the right side, right atrium, right ventricle, this conduction system may cause some changes in the rhythm, that is arrhythmias can happen. So it should be monitored properly. So regarding the prognosis, very low operative mortality of less than 1%. Okay, very low operative mortality, very good prognosis actually. Complications can be there like infective endocarditis, pulmonary arterial hypertension, congestive cardiac failure, growth retardation, post-op complication after the surgical repair. So these are the some of the complications which can be expected in a child with atrial septal defect. Okay. So hope you all clear with this condition, atrial septal defect. So as a summary, it is a condition which is coming under increased pulmonary blood flow, that is defects with increased pulmonary blood flow because towards the right side more amount of blood is coming from left side and this will be causing overburden or workload over the right side of the heart. So this is the main problem, and the major complication and associated problem is because of congestive heart failure because of the workload of the right side of the heart. Okay. Hope you all clear with this condition. Thank you very much.